Hello everyone, good day to all of you. I hope you're all doing well. This is the long-term review, or rather I'm going to turn this into pretty much just a redone review of the KNS Precision adjustable gas piston, which is what I have in here. And I actually have two of them. So I originally did a review about 2 years ago, and I did promise that I would do a long-term review on it. Back then I just put it on my Wasser 10 right here to just tame the recoil. And admittedly, I actually forgot that I said I would do a long-term review until very recently when I picked this one up. So some changes. I actually did end up being able to test this with a suppressor, which I originally didn't think I'd ever be able to do, but yeah, did get into suppressors. So I'll have some stuff to talk about there, but I did want to start with that Wasser that I had from earlier, since that is the original piston, and I wanted to start by talking about the long-term wear and durability of the piston. Okay. So I've got this field strip. Here's the piston from it, of course, just so you can see that I actually did take it out of this rifle. So first up, I suppose I should start just a very quick primer, of course. This is a adjustable gas piston. The advantage is you can reduce the amount of gas going through the system, so less recoil, or slow down the bolt velocity, especially if you're using a suppressor, which is why I put one on my SLR. I was getting some crazy high bolt velocities. And the way that it does that is you turn this collar here, either up or down, counterclockwise, clockwise, to just adjust the amount of gas going through the system. So with that being said, my biggest concern back when I first installed this was I was worried that this system would carbon lock over time, but I'm happy to report that actually it has no problems whatsoever with that. So you can see I currently have this on a relatively open setting, and I didn't clean this or anything. If anything, makes it for a better example since there's carbon everywhere on here. And you can see, I'll go ahead and get the, I want to try to get the camera to focus anyway. I think that's going to be as good as it can get, but you should still be able to see it and probably hear it. So just right there. Now, the clicks are a little bit less audible, but they're still, you still feel a very affirmative click as it changes positions. So it is working perfectly. I could run this all the way down, all the way back up. I'm not going to, because I want to keep my gas setting. I don't want to have to redo that. Moving on from that though, one part that actually did become an issue as far as the durability on here that I wasn't expecting is actually the roll pin, which is how this piston attaches to your bolt carrier body over here. So how it's supposed to look, I'll actually take the one out of my SLR 104 right now for comparison. So here's my SLR's bolt carrier. As you can see, this one's actually serialized since I did install it on the OEM bolt carrier. So how it's supposed to look is, of course, you have the roll pin going through and retaining it on both sides, and actually it's not really in there as much as it should be. It's already kind of becoming an issue there, but it should be retaining it on both sides. Compared to on my Wasser, what happened at some point during recoil is you can see the roll pin on this right side here, just barely. But if I turn it over, there's just the threads. So what happened was under recoil, the roll pin, of course, walked, because this was never the tightest fit, which was always a concern. On the other hand, an AK piston isn't supposed to be super tight, so it should have some play in it, so maybe this actually ends up working better. But once the roll pin walked, what happened was this started to unthread just ever so slightly, enough for the roll pin here to just kind of wedge somewhat in place. I say, you know, because it's still able to move freely, but point is it's kind of wedged in enough to where this doesn't fall out anymore on its own. It just, yeah, it didn't retain on the other side. Now, part of this might be because when I was installing this, of course, you need to drill out your original rivet that holds on the normal piston, which I would say is really the most difficult part of the entire process. Installing this is easy. Getting rid of your old piston is remarkably hard on both of these. And unfortunately, I really don't have any good advice for it. It was a pain both the original time and even after using some techniques I thought I learned then. It was still quite difficult to remove the rivet on the SLR as well. But yeah, this one did get a bit egged out. SLR did not, but as you saw, they're both walking a little bit out. Again, I have thousands of rounds on both of these combined, and it hasn't come out completely, so I don't think it's going to be an issue, but I would prefer if they just had a bigger roll pin or just some other method of attaching it in the first place. The best advice I can give when you are removing your original rivet is just get a really small drill bit, because keep in mind you're removing a rivet, so you'll just want to separate the head from the main rivet body. So if you just take a small enough drill bit to just take out pretty much that connection, then you can pound it out the rest of the way. And it's insanely tight, don't get me wrong. Even when you do it correctly, you're going to be pounding at the original rivet for a while to get it out, but just be patient and tap it with a good amount of force, and it will it will move out eventually. So moving on to how effective is this piston actually. So I would say just 100% of the time, even with those somewhat weird aspects of the installation, that this is super worth it, especially if you have an import AK, but I would say even on most American AKs, it's still worth it to tone down the gassing. And 100%, I would say this is almost a necessity if you want to shoot an AK suppressed. Again, especially the import ones, because they get crazy overgassed. When I first put this Cat WB onto here, this is actually a very effective reduced back pressure suppressor, but even then, the bolt velocities I was getting on here were remarkably high. You could really feel it, but I was especially concerned about the parts wear from having such a high bolt velocity, the amount of just premature damage pretty much that I'd be doing to everything inside the gun. I just wanted to mitigate that. So those are really the biggest selling points, I would say, of the KNS Piston. Now, one thing on that, something I've noticed with all the thousands of rounds, both on this as well as on that Wasser in 7.62x39, is that even when you get this perfectly tuned and it's just super comfortable, it doesn't look like it's hardly recoiling at all, and you don't feel hardly any recoil. But since you still have quite a bit of reciprocating mass, since this is at the end of the day still a long stroke gas piston, even when it's properly tuned, you're still going to have quite a bit of muzzle rise, but don't expect it to turn your AK into a race gun. One thing I would also recommend when you're doing your first tuning and getting the gas just right, I would recommend that once you think you've got it right, do at least one more full mag, because what I did was I thought I had it running perfectly, shot about another 10 or 15 rounds, and everything worked fine, but then I was just doing a mag dump just to really get a feel for the improvements in felt recoil and muzzle rise, and had yet another malfunction. So especially with surplus ammo, the powder charges are really inconsistent, and especially a lot of the Tula garbage. And then after that, one other thing I would say is, once you do think you've got it absolutely perfect, maybe overgas it ever so slightly, just give it like 2, 3, maybe even 4 more clicks after that. And the reason for that, especially if you have really cold winters like I do here, then it just helps to make sure that the rifle does keep running even when the gas can kind of constrict in the super cold first shots out there. So thank you all for watching. Not too complicated or long of a video, just mostly an update and kind of a re-review. But if you have any other questions, let me know. Overall, I really do love these KNS pistons. I think that they are the best solution for, I should say, for retrofitting AKs. Otherwise, having an actual proper adjustable external gas block is, I think, obviously the better choice. But when you have something like this, or if you just want to retain that original look, then it works great. I know that there are heavier recoil springs out there that do a similar effect, but those also do make it a lot harder to charge the rifle, especially if you're in a non-standard shooting position or even just from prone. Thank you all for watching. Greatly appreciate it. Take care, and hope to see you all in the next one. See you then.